Welcome back to Gruber Motor Company. I'm Pete Gruber.
And I'm Zane Courtney.
And this is the Gruber Morning Show. The image behind us is at the Arboretum here in eastern Arizona, actually east of Phoenix. And it's probably about a half-hour drive. Acres of cactus, exquisite cactus collected from all over the world that are thriving here in this large area or park called the Arboretum. Highly recommend it. It's free too. They've got picnic tables there if you want to bring some food. But yeah, it's definitely a place where you can spend hours and be fascinated by the flora and all of the various types of plants.
Is this one of your infrared photos?
No, actually I have I have an infrared version of these pictures at the Arboretum, but we chose to go with the full color version on this podcast.
Nice. Looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can use that infrared maybe next episode.
There we go.
Cool. Do we want to go into questions first or some news items?
I mean, there's a lot of news items that just dropped within the last 24 hours. I mean, if we want to go ahead and hit on the biggest one, we can do that before we jump into some questions. But also, quick reminder, please send us your questions. You guys drive the show. Thank you to everybody on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you're coming from. Please tell us, where you're from, what your question is. We love being able to engage because, again, you guys make the show. But the biggest news item, at least as far as I can tell today, is huge news about the Tesla supercharging network just got dropped yesterday in regards to the U.S. Federal government finally giving incentives back into Tesla to open it up to everybody. And this is huge news because we've been speculating for a long time, when is this actually going to happen? When is Tesla going to finally release the supercharger network to everybody? It's finally happening. According to whitehouse.gov, and I've got their official statement pulled up here, the Federal Highway Administration announced details for its soon-to-launch charging and fueling infrastructure discretionary grant program. The program will make available more than $2.5 billion over 5 years, including $700 million in funding through the first round of funding available to states, localities, tribes, territories, and public authorities to deploy publicly accessible charging and alternative fueling infrastructure in communities across the country, including at schools, grocery stores, parks, libraries, apartment complexes, that's a big one, and everywhere else Americans live and work. And there's another important note. These are kind of their main bullet points from the announcement, that the administration highlighted major manufacturing and other new facilities spurred by these investments in the Biden-Harris administration's Made in America policies, including new commitments from domestic EV charging manufacturers and network operators. So the two most important parts of that whole announcement are the fact that they're finally re-collaborating with Tesla. This is big news because they haven't done that in years. They've been wanting to kind of push more of the legacy guys up to speed when it comes to, even building out their own battery component architecture. And now it's like, oh, hey, if we're going to get this done by 2035, which the EU, that's the other big piece of news, has also announced that they're going to ban all new combustion vehicles by 2035, same as California. So, if we're going to actually somewhat make that happen, I'm still skeptical about if that's even going to be possible. But regardless, it's happening, and this new announcement's huge.
Awesome. I understand, and I saw this a couple days ago, that Elon and Biden were supposed to be meeting. I don't know if that meeting has taken place yet, or if it was a part of the introduction of this program. But going back years, I remember the difficult days of Tesla when profitability was just elusive. It wasn't there, but they continued to plug away, and they realized that they wouldn't be able to sell their EVs unless they had a charging system in place. So, at their own expense, they built these charging stations all over the world, actually, realizing that it would be difficult to sell EVs or their cars if they didn't have a method to get fuel or get charging for these cars.
That's right.
But those of us waiting on the sidelines and watching this, none of us, I think, were prepared for the rapid adoption of electric vehicles, but we all suspected that at some point in time, this constant investment was going to turn into a massive revenue-generating opportunity, because an infrastructure like this in place isn't only suitable for a Tesla vehicle, it's suitable for all the EVs.
That's right.
And if they can transition that and provide that service, and of course monetize it, because you have to charge for the electricity and the lease on the space and all of that.
That's right.
And the upkeep and maintenance. And of course, being a business, they're going to put margin in that or profits. We knew that it was going to be massively revenue generating.
Tesla knows a thing or two about high margins.
And they do. And now that the government is stepping in, realizing that GM is not the one leading the EV charge, it's most likely Tesla, and they're coming to that realization, looking at their supercharger and their charging infrastructure. I think it's wonderful that Tesla now is getting some love from the government.
And it's not like, we're haters of GM or anything like that
No.
in particular. It's more just kind of, why did this relationship go the way it did between the government, Tesla, and GM? Just kind of having this, I guess, sort of split dating life, if you want to call it that. And we've talked about it on the show before in regards to what this supercharging network monetization policies could actually look like realistically, because it's hard for someone up and coming, let's say, to start some kind of mom and pop shop charging business. It's not really there yet. But when you have the biggest contributor in the game, Tesla, finally getting more attention to bring this supercharger network to everybody, you're exactly right. The monetization ability is going to skyrocket now that there's an even bigger incentive to be able to put them in places like apartments for people like me who wouldn't get an EV otherwise, to be perfectly frank. It's just not viable. But now, we're going to see that infrastructure implemented a little bit more, and it's meeting demand. Chargers are actually being built, vehicles are being developed in a ratio to chargers. Guess what? It's like 2 to 1.
2 to 1.
They're doubling we're producing way more vehicles than we are chargers, which is kind of a problem.
So it needs a boost.
It needs a big boost. So the fact, and it's also worth noting that this is specifically for the charging network, and it's specifically in America. So sorry to all of our international audiences, this is specifically an American development here, because in America we haven't had this connection between Tesla and all these other networks ever.
Yeah. We should probably dive into some questions here. We've got a YouTube Shorts question from Igor Koski. Welcome back, Igor. You've been here before.
I think this one was from our last show, if I remember that correctly. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yes.
This is from the first two
one?
questions on this list are from the last show.
Well, Igor, if you're watching, we're going to answer your question. The question is, do we still hold hope for the Cybertruck ever making it into production, or are we going to be teased by Tesla and the production announcements will continue to get pushed farther and farther into the future? As I've said many times, Tesla does eventually deliver. They don't leave you high and dry. The latest information is that this year they're beginning to ramp production. And remember, they just made massive investments in this gigapress from Italy, which will make a unibody, basically, frame for the Cybertruck. Texas is very much committed to that. They do also claim that by the end of this year, fall of this year, they will ramp up production and start releasing vehicles next year, spring of next year, Q1, Q2.
Yeah, so late this year, we're going to expect to see at least the first few Cybertrucks on the road, and then next year, it's going to be that big boom.
YouTube, Paratosh P had a question. I have a question. Are the cells in the battery pack like a normal AA battery or an upgraded one? And we're talking about EV packs here. Although the AA battery, which everyone is very familiar with, flashlight batteries, toy batteries, whatever, appliances, is a little bit smaller than the 18650 lithium-ion cell. And there are a number of chemistries in AA batteries, the majority of which are not rechargeable. So when your flashlight dies, you throw the batteries away and you put fresh ones in. With lithium-ion type batteries, 18650s, they're rechargeable for a number of cycles. So that's the major difference. And of course, energy storage. Recyclability on AA batteries is actually not that bad. Most of the materials can be recycled. And as we've said many times, the new EV batteries are 100% recyclable, with companies like Redwood Technologies coming out with production processes that create a 0% waste stream.
Yeah, And I'll admit that it's hard to kind of get in a good habit of being able to recycle batteries because they're not supposed to apparently go in the recycle bin, the same one that you'd have at your house or anything like that. So it's a little tricky on how to, some people, myself included, I'm guilty of this, you just toss it in the regular trash can, you forget about it. Actually, there was a day I was at State Farm Stadium here in Phoenix, and a dumpster just outside the stadium caught fire. And we suspected it was particularly because someone tossed a battery away in there, and when it got compressed, that that pack combusted and caused a whole large fire. And they took them a while to be able to put that out. It was luckily really well contained in a steel enclosure, but it was kind of tricky. So be sure to think about where you throw your batteries away.
So a TikTok question from Buddy. He's responding to our Cybertruck discussion just a few minutes ago, and he says, they've been saying that for years about the Cybertruck.
That is true.
However, there is a change, and these service centers, for example, are currently getting new lift equipment, so they're making an infrastructure improvement investment at the service centers. And guess what for? The Cybertruck's heavier, bigger, or whatever, and they need different lifts. And then finally, this massive investment from this Italian company that makes these gigapresses, that equipment has already been purchased some time ago. It has been delivered, and it is installed. So at this point, they're ready to start cranking out product. Why wouldn't they? So
I love that you said it too. Tesla they always commit to what they say they're going to build. It's not going to be quick, but it will happen. We saw that with the Semi. It was a 7-year delay or something like that on the Semi. But it's here.
of course,
Can't argue that.
We have the Super Hyper Roadster that is also being developed, and that one will probably be the slowest one, I do have to admit, because it's a niche vehicle.
Yeah, right.
And there's so much demand for these other vehicles, and that's what makes the shareholders happy, is feeding the bottom line. And that Cybertruck, you can tell with the pre-orders, that's going to be a huge revenue generator for Tesla.
Man, right now their profit margins are kind of on the fritz. I mean, obviously they're still high, but the price fluctuations recently have been kind of fun to watch because, you had a couple of days where the Model 3 rear-wheel drive was down around 35 grand brand new. And then now it's kind of gone back up just a little bit. Model Ys went from, I think it was 40 something odd that, or 56,000 back up to 63, something like that. So they flux a little bit, but hey, it's all in service of being able to keep these margins up so that they can pursue more projects like this model, like that Roadster.
So the TikTok question from Who Next? He says, y'all look on Copart? Yes, we do. Years ago, 2017, we had 2 hurricanes that hit the United States, and Texas and Florida. And we were buying flood-damaged Model S's. They were plentiful. And the people we were competing with were body shops, paint and body. We're terrified of any problems in the electronics. So we were picking these cars up at great prices. We bought 22 Model S's, for example. Copart, IAA, Mannheim, those are the primary auctions that we were looking at. Now, again, we've talked about this before. Buying collision damaged total cars, EVs, is not for the faint of heart. It's almost like going to a casino. You're going to have wins and losses, and there's a certain finesse and skill required to pick the right vehicle. We got pretty good at it after a while. First thing you do is, if it's a flood damaged car, do your research and figure out what kind of storm created the flood. If it was brackish water coming in from the oceans, you got salt water in there, run from those. And of course, the auctions got pretty good at giving you a water level on the side of the car on the outside. It'd be like a chalk line. And from that, we were able to determine how much damage was inside the car, because modules and wiring harnesses are going to corrode and go defective with water or any kind of fluid in there. So we got pretty good at realizing what modules were going to be compromised. Like the body control module is in the passenger compartment and it sits fairly low. The chargers, if there's any water ingress at all, are always going to be compromised because they sit behind the rear seat and it's the lowest point in the car or in the cabin. So again, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you're willing to tackle it and you find a good deal, we've had successes and failures.
It's definitely a good go-kart because the warranty on those has expired.
So we've got a news item here. Ford apparently pauses shipping, building the electric F-150 model due to potential battery issues. Now, potential is kind of a nebulous word here, but
yeah, they're very particular about that.
this particular article does not elaborate, but again, it's not a surprise. You have these new EV manufacturers, and I'm not saying that Ford is new to the game of building automobiles, but they're clearly new to EVs. And as we were advised by Martin Eberhard last year, Martin founded Tesla, basically, him and Mark Tarpenning. They were the first ones there. And he was describing to us how meticulously the engineering for the battery pack took place for the Tesla Roadster. They agonized over the design because nothing like this had ever been built before. We're talking about a 1,000-pound battery pack with 6,831 cylindrical lithium-ion cells connected in series and parallel. And they had no idea what would happen during a collision, a puncture, water ingress, the thing gets driven into a lake or whatever. So they overcompensated with a number of safety issues. The feeling is that these new manufacturers aren't able to spend the same amount of time that Tesla did to develop a bulletproof product. So it's not surprising that GM had recalls last year with their batteries. Ford now seems to be involved in the same kind of issue. They will eventually all get it right.
Yeah, especially with new chemistries being able to be available and tried. Great questions coming in on TikTok. Who next? What year Tesla do you recommend? Maybe I'm assuming they're talking about any year, I guess, new, used, any recommendations?
If it's related to used cars, our advice is that if you want to get a lower price Tesla, you can go into the vehicles, the original Model S, for example, 2012 on forward. What a 2012 to 2014, 15 is going to get you is free supercharging. Now, why is that a big deal? It's like getting free gasoline for the life of the car. The second thing it's going to get you is there were design problems with those early cars, but the warranty visits flushed the majority of those out. So if the drivetrains, door handles, window regulators, those the flash chip memory, for example, the majority of those have been flushed out with those older cars. So now you're at the mercy of wear and tear type items, suspension, brakes, the tires, the body issues, which with an EV is much less than an ICE vehicle.
Or on the Model S specifically, the door handles, having those appearing door handles, those were a typical issue. But they were able to, get those fixed as well. And most of those 2015s, by the way, most of them are either just out of warranty, but all of the major repairs have been done on them, so they're confident in being able to get them on resale. And that's particularly why. They've taken them in. A lot of people are still saying that, it's like even out of warranty. Things like tires, just because EVs do burn through those slightly more quickly. Everything else is fairly negligible.
So I just gave you guys all the pros. There is a con, though, and it is the main propulsion battery. We don't know how long these batteries are going to last yet because the Tesla Roadster was really the first cylindrical multi-cell lithium-ion battery pack on the planet. And those are still going strong, the majority of them at 15 years. Now, if you can get that kind of life out of a Model S, and it is an almost identical design, then buying a 2014 or a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old car may just work for you. Now be prepared though, if that main battery goes bad, your only options then become a shop like ours that repairs them or Tesla that replaces it for $22,000.
A lot of people I've seen, if they do end up with something like a 2014, 2015, 2016 even, before the refresh, models like that, still fairly low degradation I've seen on a lot of those, somewhere around 3%, maybe less. It's kind of remarkable to watch as we continue to follow up on those batteries and see how long they'll actually last. From TikTok from Emil Van Rossum, why do you have sunglasses on inside on camera? Is it a bit ridiculous or not?
Well, what our suggestion earlier was, we were asked, is it bright in here? Yes, it's very bright.
It is.
We try to limit the amount of brightness that gets through the cameras, but if you're feeling overwhelmed and visually stimulated on the other end, put on your own sunglasses, and it will tone down the amount of brightness on your end and on our end since you're watching
I mean,
us.
we're in the desert. There's tons of sun.
Yeah, and remember, we've been saying this from day one, there will eventually be a video, a release video, that will give all the details why our presenters, myself especially, always wear sunglasses during our videos.
It's like Tesla. We'll announce it, and one day it will come out. I don't know when.
So we've got an issue here that's been brewing, and I don't want to get into it too deeply, but it's this Tesla bashing that's going on with the billionaire Dan O'Dowd with the Dawn Project. The reason we don't want to get into it too deeply is because the details regarding this are murky. Lots of accusations. There's even a lawsuit now that is being put together. And for those of you unaware, Dan O'Dowd is a self-described billionaire and founder of Green Hill Software, privately owned company that makes operating systems and programming tools. He is alleging that the Tesla full self-driving software should be banned. It should be restricted because it's dangerous. And he actually aired some TV spots during Super Bowl, not nationwide, but in certain regions, showing a childlike mannequin being dragged across the street and making a point that a Tesla with full self-driving plowed over this mannequin. What wasn't shown, and this is part of the problem with this whole issue, is the whole story. We only saw the car reaching the mannequin and then plowing over it. What we didn't see was what was going on inside the screen. And there's an online magazine, Electrify, that alleges that the full self-driving wasn't even on from an earlier video that was done, where it was very low res, but they were able to extract a detail that showed that full self-driving wasn't on, but what was being alleged was deceptive in that it now showed the car plowing over a full-size mannequin in this case. So that's the reason we don't want to get too far into this, but what we find interesting is that there is such a passion by this individual to discredit Tesla. And, you know, again, if this is a real issue, let's have some high-quality images, videos, facts. Instead of just showing the car hurtling toward this object, let's show the screen that's in the car at the same time so that there's proof. And apparently, any requests to get additional detail are kind of murky with this Dan O'Dowd individual. So there you have it. I'm sure this will evolve into something much more than it is currently, but it definitely is a smear campaign at this point without a lot of content and value so far.
Good stuff. We got a lot more questions coming in. Thank you guys so much for sending these. From the Hotshot on TikTok, he knows someone that has two Cybertrucks on there. Very cool. Getting some love from Manny Gupta on LinkedIn. Yeah, we're everywhere, guys. Thank you so much for getting to join us on all our platforms. Got some love on Instagram from Tesla Dave 86. Great video, great value. That's wonderful.
Can you guys throw up an image of the Wiesmann group?
Oh, like Louis? Oh, no, that's
actually,
Rossmann.
this is, I never heard of them, but there's a car manufacturer in Germany called Wiesmann, GmbH. That's
Look
like
at
their
that.
Inc. version. And it's coming up here shortly. What they're making is a electric Roadster, just like Tesla did with the
But those already exist.
with the Roadster, yes. But this is an updated version. The company is from Dülmen, Germany, which is near the Netherlands. And as you can see, it's kind of a blend between the Bugatti front. See that grille? By the way, the grille is unnecessary, really, unless it's an air conditioning condenser that's being serviced behind that grille, because you don't have an ICE engine in there. But it definitely harkens back to some earlier design features in Roadsters. So let me tell you about the company a bit. It was founded in 1993. It is a company that hand builds custom vehicles, and they were using the BMW drivetrains, ICE vehicles. They started with a 4-cylinder, 6 cylinders, eventually went to 8 cylinders, and then put the M5 8-cylinder engine. Let me get my, make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So anyway, they are going to build 180 of these, and they took pre-orders. And every single car has already been sold out. And it opened in September of last year, and the response has been phenomenal. This is a fully electric Roadster, convertible top, and a luxury Roadster. That's the other thing that's different about the Tesla Roadster, is that it wasn't really a luxury car, it was a fun sports car. Exactly, right?
Yeah, that thing is definitely luxury. I'll tell you what, that's equity for somebody.
Now, production will start in 2024 at Wiesmann's Gecko facility in Dülmen. Where the gecko portion comes from is, part of their logo is a gecko because they want to show that their car can hug the road like a gecko climbing up a vertical wall.
Nice.
Yeah. They have years of coach building experience. Like most small run auto manufacturers have had their share of financial problems, even went through a bankruptcy apparently. This particular Roadster is being aided with a two electric motor and rear mid-mount position. The targeted output is 688 horsepower, which is pretty good for a small light car like this, and 0 to 62 miles in 2.9 seconds. It will be an 800-volt lithium-ion battery pack, 92 kW, and let's see if there's anything else in here. Oh, and it will accept fast charging up to 300 kW DC fast charging. So anyway, Roheen Berry is currently the owner and CEO at Wiesmann. The original Wiesmann brothers are no longer affiliated with the company directly. It's a captivating, iconic car. And you know, if Tesla had come out with their Roadster, the second generation Roadster, that probably would not be as noteworthy that we have a company now that is actually building a luxury Roadster.
Yeah, this is the first real competitor to the Roadster that we've seen from any other automaker. Everybody else is either making electric hypercars or somewhat electrified muscle cars, but this is kind of the first direct competitor to a Roadster, so this is kind of cool to see. It kind of reminds me of the Abarth, triangular front.
Yeah.
You see on a lot of those. So from CMAC on TikTok, they mentioned they want to know how much. Sounds expensive. Sounds like Geico.
Yep, $330,000 is what I've seen so far. And if the rest of the auto manufacturers are watching, they try to stay away from niche vehicles because it's spotty market, they feel, and they want to go mainstream and go where the revenue is. This thing sold out within a matter of months.
Well, there we go.
$330,000 car. So maybe there is a market here. And
yeah.
Maybe we'll get the rest of the manufacturers.
Well, if you have a limited release on something special like that, yeah, chances are that those few people that were already interested will go ahead and hop on it. Speaking of hopping on, thank you guys so much for sending more of these questions. We got tons to look at here from Ewan Caldwell on Instagram. Love the show. Question is, why was the Tesla Semi in the Gruber Motors yard? Well, it actually wasn't in the yard per se.
Yeah, what happened was, guys, we didn't know this semi was in our neighborhood. Our social media guys were out collecting B-roll videos. By that I mean, shots of vehicles going by, things that they could use as background in our videos. And a gigantic vehicle drove past them on one of the streets here in our commercial compound where our commercial buildings are. And they realized it was not making any type of noise. And that immediately prompted them to take a closer look and realize this was a Tesla Semi, quietly moving down our street. It finally pulled into one of our neighbor's parking lots. The neighbor does wraps, and of course that was Super Bowl week, and Frito-Lay wanted this trailer wrapped with their advertisements, chips and Pepsi-Cola and all the rest of it. And so the car got parked, or the Semi got parked. We asked the driver, could we take some pictures? He says, look, as long as you guys take pictures of the outside, I can't let you inside the vehicle, but knock yourselves out. So we immediately brought over a first-generation Tesla Roadster. We parked it next to this gigantic Tesla Beast just to show the scale the difference between those two. The noteworthy things were the seat in this semi, of course, is dead center with 2 screens on either side. Now you might ask, well then how do these truckers now pick up a hitchhiker? Well, there's a jump seat or a buddy seat to the right of the driver just behind him. So they can still pick up hitchhikers. The second thing that we noticed was you couldn't see the batteries, but there was a section in the truck that's where the batteries sat. And it had over 10 times as many batteries as that little Tesla Roadster with its 1,000-pound battery pack. But we posted pictures of the two on Facebook, and the caption was "Father and Son?" ? And that thing went viral because you can't quite distinguish which one is father and son. So, but that's how the semi
Son
came
ate his
to our.
Wheaties, that's for sure.
Yeah. We immediately began to think about, will a semi be serviceable in our service center? And we were glad to find that the height of our main door in the front is going to accommodate a Tesla semi-truck. Of course, we'll have to get a different lift. That's our lifts aren't, they're 10,000 pound. So to do a semi, we're going to need some stronger hydraulics.
Or just dig a bigger hole and go under. Oh, these are great. Someone also asked if the semi has any known problems yet. No, I don't think there's any particular information on those just yet. There's not enough of them on the road to get any conclusive data.
So we've got Adrian from TikTok. Welcome. Can you share more technical details about how you're finding the damaged cells in a pack out of an all cell or out of a pack? The type of problems that usually occur in a EV battery pack are water ingress. The seals got compromised and water got in there, driving through puddles, driving through underpasses that are covered in water. The second one is electronics. There are battery management boards inside the battery packs on every single module. In an 85 kW module, for example, in a Tesla Model S, you have 16 modules, so you have 16 BMB boards. These are microprocessor-based boards. They have small electronics on them, and at times we find bad components, and that's what we do. We troubleshoot down to component level, unlike other shops that just simply swap the entire battery or the module. And then the third thing is, occasionally a 18650, 2170 cell or whatever, lithium-ion cell, goes resistive. And when that occurs, these cells are mounted in parallel, meaning plus and minus connected together, times 69 in a Roadster. So when you get a resistive cell in a pack that's in parallel, you can't really tell which cell is dragging down everybody. And that's where our skill comes in. We have sophisticated procedures and equipment that allow us to find that needle in the haystack. And then the fix simply is, once you know which resistive cell it is, you snip it out of circuit. There are 2 fusible link wires on both negative and positive side of the 18650 cell. And the easiest way to resolve that is snip it out, and the car never realizes that 1 out of 7,000 cells went MIA. So those are the 3 methods of repairs that we do. Sometimes with water ingress, the damage is so severe that it's not economically feasible to change all of the modules. And by the way, when you get water inside a pack, the water typically has minerals in it, especially if it's salt water and it's an electrolyte. And you start electroplating, you start moving metals around, there is no salvage possibility for a module that has been compromised with fluids like that. So replacement is really the only option. If you're fortunate, it's only a couple, 3 modules in the front or the back or wherever. But we've had cases where the entire tub, and those batteries in EVs are literally a tub, are compromised because the water migrated into all 16 modules. So that was a long explanation. I hope that
That was
made
a
sense.
good one. Hey, that was an in-depth review. There we go. From Dale Sparks on YouTube, when will solid-state batteries come into production? You know, there's a lot of news going up on that. Solid-state's been a technology that's it's not commercial yet. The technology does exist. It's more just trying to figure out when that's going to be more publicly available. It's kind of hard to get more of these non-liquid cathodes being able to become more readily available. But, we'll see. It should be relatively within a decade, according to most people.
Typically the way that these processes work, new technology comes into being, the production challenges are being resolved and worked on. At some point in time on a spreadsheet somewhere, there's a crossover point where it becomes economically feasible to begin producing the product. And until they reach that, we're not going to see the product in the market, or we'll see limited versions of it that cost more, but have the advantages that come along with it are acceptable to the limited customers that may buy this. We're not working on it though. We don't have the lab or the engineering expertise to do an advanced analysis like this and bring solid state batteries to market. That's going to be larger companies that have the engineering labs and the skilled staff to even scientists in many cases. There's I think a university Dalhouse that Tesla works with, and oftentimes it's an outreach organization like that. It's not the primary manufacturer, but they align with experts like this.
Right, yeah. It's a lot of collaboration over a lot of time with a lot of talent, but it's possible.
Right, so Tim Rollins, YouTube. Wait, so Cybertrucks won't fit on a traditional lift? Well, most semis won't. They're just large, bulky, and heavy. He says, I work in a chain tire store, and it's always fun to get to install tires on a Tesla. Not being able to lift a Cybertruck is a bummer.
Yeah. A lot of these new EV trucks too, at least with the Rivian, actually has its own way to change a tire on itself. I think it's unique to the Rivian because of the quad motor and air suspension that it does have. So you're actually able to change a tire without the use of any jacks or anything like that. It jacks itself up and balances itself in a way that you can lift the tire off and change it with the spare that they keep in the back if you have the adventure model with the added spare. But as far as Cybertruck goes, we don't know about that yet. And so, yeah, it is a bit of a bummer that the architecture is a little bit different, but it's still a truck, so it'll still have those main points of contact that you'll be able to get on a lift. But yeah, we don't know what the size of that lift is going to be just yet.
So it looks like a YouTube question from Corglass. Welcome back,
Hey!
Corglass. He says, why doesn't Tesla offer vehicle-to-grid, V2G? Is it because it would eat into their Powerwall business? V2G is amazing for both the user and the grid.
The Powerwall thing is something I haven't even considered because you would think, especially with the Cybertruck coming out, vehicle to home at least would be a necessary component just because every other competitor has it.
Yeah. I can't imagine, though, that Tesla would be stifled by the fact that one of these features might compete with some other product they have. The primary reasoning is they need to remain competitive. The whole issue on vehicle-to-grid, by the way, and Tesla goes back many, many years, even at the foundation of Tesla, because their test mule, the T0, by the way, you got a good video coming out on that vehicle. You're going to like this. It was the first EV sports car, only built 3 of them, and it's the car that inspired Tesla to create Tesla. Martin Eberhard, Mark Tarpenning, and eventually Elon came along and also looked at the T0 and decided this is a viable market. But anyway, the T0, which was the test mule for Tesla, it's what they patterned the Roadster after, had vehicle-to-grid. And we're talking about 1997. Which was well before any EV activity other than GM's ill-fated EV1.
That's right.
When they decided there's no market for EVs.
Yep. And then they unfortunately scrapped every single one of them.
And the owners were furious. But so anyway, vehicle-to-grid is not new to Tesla. And I don't have an answer why it has not yet been incorporated into their vehicles.
But maybe we'll see it with Cybertruck. From Michael Mackey on YouTube Shorts, when do you think Ford is going to electrify their Super Duty model pickup trucks? That's something specifically that's cool because the Super Duties you would think would kind of at least get on the hybrid train so that they have some of that electric torque that could be added alongside the powertrain. Well,
it looks like Ford right now has some challenges too. They've got battery problems, so that will slow them down a bit. We don't know when. And it also has to do, of course, with economics. Steve Rose from YouTube, do you think Tesla will ever be able to backfeed the battery energy potential to power a home or the grid?
Yeah, it's the same V2G question.
Same question, yes. Yep. And like Ford, they put vehicle to home in their F-150 pickup truck. It's not hard to do. In fact, if you own an EV, you can do that with an inverter down at Harbor Freight, and you've got 120 volts in your car. It's that simple. Except, you know, the manufacturers would build it, of course, into their infrastructure.
From Somi Samyo on YouTube Shorts. Hi guys, I'm wondering if Tesla will be coming to the Middle East, and how do you think the car will maintain cooling the components under our burning sun here? Love your show from Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Well,
we've got a similar climate here actually in Phoenix, so this is a pretty good testing ground for what that would look like. And it does seem to be like the Middle East is getting a lot more electrification anyways. But the unique problems that we've had here is usually the opposite of what you hear from other car companies and problems, is that it's too hot. And a lot of that excessive heat also drains the battery overall. So you're actually expected to lose somewhere around 10 to 15% on a really hot day over 100 degrees.
Well, Tesla has some experience with the area that you're talking about, and it was Abu Dhabi, I think, where a Tesla Roadster was purchased by a wealthy oil sheik, or so the legend goes. And what he found was that they have a lot of roundabouts there, and he enjoyed being able to zip out of a roundabout and take off with that Roadster, but when it got really hot, it was power limiting, and he didn't have the horsepower, which is one thing a Tesla Roadster will do. It services the battery first. In fact, they have air conditioning in a Tesla Roadster, but it's kind of silly here in Phoenix because you'll be driving along, you got your windows up, and you've got some cool air coming in, and suddenly the air conditioning shuts down and you get hotter than a pistol inside because it's 115 out. What the car at that point decided was the occupants aren't as important as my main battery, the 1,000-pound battery, so it redirects all of the air conditioning to the battery. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, with this Roadster in Abu Dhabi, they ended up flying a couple of engineers there to take a look at what this Roadster was doing and whether they could adjust it to tweak it so that it does not respond as quickly. What they ended up doing, and we have one of the Roadsters here that actually was modified that way, they modified not only the electronics a bit, but they also modified the firmware so it's not as sensitive. I think when they were designing the Roadster, nobody expected 115-degree temperatures in full sun. So the question whether Tesla is aware of the various climates, any manufacturer now is going to do a full test. And like Zane pointed out, Phoenix, Arizona would be a wonderful place for them to do some of that type of testing.
Rivian was even going to have a testing facility here just up north over by Glendale, but or sorry, more, I guess a little further north than Surprise, not quite Glendale. And that's particularly because of our hot weather. It's unique to this part of the world, but it's still that whole part of the strip on the planet, you know, of a lot of desert climate is still home to a lot of people. So
I picked up a really great question that I wanted to share with you, and we still have some questions that are coming in. We'll service those, if not this show, next show, so hang tight. But the question was, if I turned off my computer for 100 years without touching it at all and protected it in a perfect condition, would it work afterwards? And if not, why? There are a number of things that occur when you idle electronics like this. And as other people have said, corrosion, capacitor failure, this is one of the reasons that we rebuild Tesla Roadster power electronic modules. They're full of electrolytic capacitors, and capacitors do not last forever. And when they fail, they oftentimes burn things up. And you don't want to burn up a board in a Roadster because they've been out of production for 14 years, and you may kill a car. But they talk about cap failure, battery failure, all of that will likely destroy the computer, but there are additional factors as well. Modern computers have SSDs instead of spinning rust hard drives. Do you remember we used to have iron oxide on disk surfaces with heads that would launch out and retrieve data magnetically recorded on that rusty surface, right? Well, fortunately, that technology has been improved and replaced by SSDs, and the firmware is stored in flash memory. Now, flash memory has a limited lifespan. You remember Tesla ran into that problem with the Model S. We started getting flash memory problems, and the MCUs would die, killing the cars. So the fix then was to go to a larger flash memory chip. One of the things that we were doing about 5 years ago or so was upgrading MCUs.
Right.
But flash memory has a limited lifespan, and then it gets technical. And I'm going to read this to you for those of you that like technical. It exploits a subtle quantum mechanics phenomenon called electron tunneling to record information as it charges on a floating gate in floating gate transistors. The same principles of quantum mechanics that allows flash memory to work also guarantees that over time, the electrons will tunnel out of the gates and the information will be lost. So if you put flash memory on a shelf and forget about it, within 5 years, enough tunneling will happen that special error correcting circuitry built into flash memory controllers do significant work to recover the data. Within 30 years, flash memory is effectively blank, dead. The firmware in your computer will also evaporate as a result. Now, this has implications for cars. You used to be able to take a car and park it for 30 years in a nice clean environment, and yeah, you might have to change your gaskets and definitely fuel in the carburetor.
Any kind of liquid in there.
Yeah, so you clean it up a bit and you could drive that car. It turns out that EVs, you have to resolve deferred maintenance in order to make them last 100 years. So there's an important lessons. There. And put a flash-equipped car in a garage for 20 or 30 years, no matter how good the car's condition is mechanically, it won't run.
That's important to know because it's why so many of us who work with computers all the time always back up our hard drives. Always back it up because you never know what could happen to that memory.
Now with cars and storage, you have other issues. And we're talking about the 30-year type storage now. Your tires are going to be shot. They're going to be dry rotted.
That's right.
Hoses, any kind of rubber, bushings, for example, are going to be shot. So anyway, I found that interesting because people are always asking how long will an EV last? Well, it can last a long time if you take care of deferred maintenance. But if you do what collectors sometimes do, which is just put it into a time capsule and store it, you're not going to be able to drive that car in 30 to 100 years.
Nope. Wow. From James Burris on TikTok, doesn't the 2012 to 2015 batteries on Teslas charge slower?
Intentionally so. Tesla has actually embedded something into the firmware because as batteries age, they become marginalized. That's one of the reasons with Tesla Roadsters we recommend to stay away from rapid, high amperage, fast charging. They like it much better with slow charging, which is that yellow extension cord, or that the yellow charge cable that is fed by 15 amps or 20 amps.
And that's true for all EVs today, that continuous supercharging really degrades that battery. It forces those electrons to constantly move a lot more often, and it just degrades it a lot faster, as opposed to the old, plug it in overnight, let it sip on it. And with that controlled charging, now they'll still charge to 80%, and even iMacs and
right.
my laptop will even have a charge hold function now so that it keeps it to 80%, so I can keep it plugged in and I don't have to worry about battery degradation because it's just going to sip on that ever so much less.
Guys, just so you know, we're coming up on 54 minutes.
50 minutes.
All right.
So we got a TikTok comment from Sean Gibbs. He says, the glasses are cool, keep it up.
Hey, thanks, Sean.
And you know what? I find that humorous because this afternoon I've got a speaking engagement at Scottsdale Community College. We're going to join the Scottsdale Electric Vehicle Association, and a lot of people passionate at the college about electric vehicles and what the future is and how to get into the market and how to buy one and what kind of education do I need to join, the workforce ranks and all of that. There are going to be a bunch of educators there, usually conservative type people, academics, right, liberals. I'm going to go there with my sunglasses. And we'll probably get the same kind of flack that we do here. Why does he have sunglasses? What do you think, guys? How do you think I should answer that?
Well, I mean, that's the image. I say go for it.
It is an image. Yeah, true.
Earlier in the show, Van Goat Wagon said it's a thing.
It's a thing. What's up, Van Goat?
So you could just you could play the whole what are you talking about? Sunglasses?
Yeah.
What? And then just continue that until they're like, all right, I'm just gonna back off.
What's going on with this guy with the Men in Black bit?
And like most things, they can eventually become fads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Trendy. Van Gogh asked, or not asked, he wanted to chime in. That's what happens to my kids' Hess toys that come with batteries included. It's true. Yeah, you never know. Those things will last you for a good minute, but then...
So one thing I wanted to share with you guys also. The CEO of Ferrari, all right? Everybody knows that Enzo Ferrari for many years, the founder of Ferrari, was heavily involved in the operations, in the development. He supervised the design teams. He was a legend, right? But he was also he had a huge ego. And I don't think that Enzo would ever have done what this new Ferrari CEO just did last week. What he did was, and by the way, let me give you his name first here. His name is Benedetto Vigna. He was born in Potenza, Italy. He's an Italian physicist and a businessman, and he's also the CEO of Ferrari.
Wow.
So what does he do? He makes a public statement and he says, I'm impressed with Tesla. Tesla was a wake-up call for the auto industry. Things used to happen too slowly. Tesla shook up the industry and accelerated the processes and decisions. They were faster and more agile. You know who was impressed with this comment? Elon.
Yeah.
Of course, Twitter. That's how he communicates.
Sure.
He thanked him and the Tesla team for recognizing their gifts that they brought to the auto world.
I mean, when you get the CEO of Ferrari's attention like that, and Ferrari's made some interesting moves over the last couple years with the electrification of, and an SUV crossover type Ferrari that's coming out in the next couple of years, or it's already out, excuse me, I forget the name of the model, but that's already happening. So they're clearly learning from their modern competitors a lot. And it's fascinating because it's a company that's built on the idea of tradition and doing it the Ferrari way and being able to refine it in that Ferrari way. And yeah, it's an interesting development.
So a bit more about Benedetto. He graduated as a physicist from the University of Pisa in 1993, started working for ST Microelectronics. You know, we're very familiar with that company because here on Bell Road, not too far from here, there was a gigantic plant, looked like a 747, silver panels on the outside with glass strips, beautiful building, and it was our first major customer 40 years ago.
Oh, wow.
1983, 84 or so. And they were impressed enough with us that they gave us the time of day, and we used to do all kinds of things in their data center, building out, doing electrical work for them, power conditioning and all that.
Nice.
So I'm familiar with the company. He is also the inventor of a three-dimensional motion sensor, which was initially applied to airbags in automobiles. And it turns out that he holds a number of patents. He has registered more than 100 patents. So we have a very accomplished, educated individual now running Tesla. My
you
question,
mean Ferrari?
Or I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, I got you.
Well, actually, Tesla is also looking for a CEO, are they not?
Oh,
I mean,
well.
Elon talks about it once in a while.
Hey, yo.
Elon, maybe you should have picked up Benedetto. But anyway, he is, yeah.
They can still be friends.
What I'm interested in is, what will Benedetto do to Ferrari? What will he do to move them into 21st century to get rid of the ICE vehicles, which they're not going to be able to even sell in another decade or so? And I'm looking for great things, I guess, from Benedetto Vigna. And yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
From Wilcox87 on TikTok, are extended warranties for EVs available? If so, would you recommend them for EVs in general? Well, Tesla used to have an extended 8-year warranty on the Model S.
You know, I don't know about Tesla's program, but Wilcox87, you have just hit on what I feel is a massive business opportunity. I'm not aware of any extended warranty companies yet that are willing to gamble and say, okay, we'll give you an insurance package and we'll change that $22,000 battery if and when it fails. But there's a huge business opportunity there. You know, I found it interesting. One of our attorney friends described the insurance company situation to me. He says, you know, both the insurance policyholder and the insurance company are gamblers.
Yeah.
One is gambling that you're going to have a failure. The other one is gambling that you're not. So anyway, I think it's a wonderful business opportunity for an insurance company to start to look at electric vehicles and offer extended warranties. A lot of research is going to be necessary because it is risk management. You know, what are the risks? How severe are they? How much does it cost over a pool of insured? And that will determine, of course, prices and all that.
Yeah, because right now modern Teslas are unfortunately a bit of a bear to insurers. What I've heard around the internet is that unlike most EVs, those are particularly high. And but you know, other cars, I don't know what it is on the F-150 Lightning or Rivian. I know Rivian has their own insurance that you can go through, and if you can afford a Rivian, you can afford the insurance on it, and it's maybe not that bad for you.
Well, what exacerbates insurance costs for EVs is the fumbling that often occurs when there's an accident or they're involved in a collision. Part shortages, for example. The insurance companies are about managing their risks, and if they understand it, they know how to charge. But when you have variables like, we're not sure we can get a fender for that Roadster, they run for the hills and they total vehicles immediately and do payouts.
True.
Until the EV market stabilizes, even in the mainstream cars, I think that insurance rates are going to be variable, and you'll have to shop, which is, of course, something you should do anyway when you're going for insurance. Compare their features and benefits and their price.
CMAC on TikTok asked, so you guys work on Model Ys and Model 3s? I saw a later comment that he actually did end up calling the Gruber Power, he actually called the shop. And so it's not that you guys don't work on them, but maybe you can go into that a little bit.
Well, sure. We will work on any of the Teslas. The question often comes up, will you work on my Fiat 500e, although we have a couple right now. The answers are no. We're so busy with Tesla Roadsters, we can't even get to all the Model S's at times. But the types of vehicles that come to our service center, and we're an independent service center, mind you, we're not subsidized by Tesla, is out of warranty vehicles. We don't get reimbursed if we fix your window regulator on a warranty Model S. Tesla does not have an outsourcing program yet. But as we've often said, any of these EV manufacturers will not be able to build their service delivery capabilities quickly enough, and they're going to be forced to outsource to companies that are in the EV space, the independents. And there are very few for them to choose from right now.
I know that there's a couple new questions that I think we have just enough time to get to, because I wanted to touch on, let's see, there's a Waymo. Trucker Alistair I just saw chimed in. What's up, Trucker Alistair? Good to see you. Let's see.
There's one, when you say resistive, is that almost a short or an open circuit? And that addresses, this is from YouTube, by the way, Boom Dandy Mite. We were talking earlier about what happens to an EV battery and how do we repair it. And there are three components, but the resistive cells, when we discuss those, his question is it a short or an open circuit? It's something in between. A typical battery is supposed to store energy and then release voltage over a period of time. When it becomes resistive, its ability to release voltage is compromised, and it won't even charge to certain levels. When that happens in a parallel connected brick, as they call them in these modules or sheets, then all of the cells look as bad as that resistive cell. So it's not a short or an open circuit, it's resistive or a combination somewhere in between that range.
Right on. From Trucker Alistair, he said, good morning guys, good to see you. How much is draining amperage on a 12-volt battery overnight, and how long would it last in hours or days? I think he's talking about phantom drain, and I think that's also dependent on the vehicle and what you have running in the background. Tesla autopilot, or not the autopilot, excuse me, Sentry mode is known to be a big phantom drain, vampire drain victim. Any kind of that security feature, pet mode, or even air conditioning tends to be some sort of thing, but it's mostly just operating system in the background.
Well, it depends on the environment that the vehicle is in as well. And part of the vehicle electronics or the functions in a vehicle are being fed from the propulsion battery, like the coolant system, for example. And then you have all of the security devices, the locks, the 12-volt systems, in other words, that are fed off of the 12-volt battery. But it just occurred to me it wouldn't be very hard for Tesla or any of these EV manufacturers to put into firmware a polling system, which is probably already there, and then display that on a screen so you can see how much current is being drained from your 12-volt battery, and then even give you a predictive analysis. How long is it going to last, or am I overusing it?
Yeah, you would think that they would have more stuff like that, but people still measure their charging in miles instead of percentages. Of that, I still can't figure out why we even bother measuring your distance in miles when it comes to something as finicky as your state of charge. I'll never understand it. One last question or two, from Fleming on TikTok from Denmark.
Welcome.
I hope you're still here. I have a model, or you're over there. I've got a Model 3 from 2019, and my charger port isn't working. Any idea for what they should do?
Well, the obvious things would be check how clean the charge port door is. Do you have debris in there? In Denmark, you've got 4 seasons, ice, there could be water ingress. Blow it out, clean it out. Sometimes we use contact cleaner on the charge port sockets in the car. And what that does is a couple of things. It blows out any debris that may be in there, but it also recoats the contact surfaces and makes a better connection. Aside from that, sounds like service center time to me.
And yeah, if it's a 2019, it should be in warranty. So.
Yes, exactly.
Great. We can do one more, I think, and then we can call the show on this. From Oakshade104 on Instagram, how many snips can you make in a battery before it won't work?
According to the original design engineers of the Tesla Roadster ESS battery pack, you can cut up to 4 cells per brick. A brick is a collection of 69 cells. Now, we proved that theory a few years ago before Tesla was making replacement batteries, and our goal was to create a test mule and see how many you can actually cut, because as our prediction was, without Tesla making a pack, people are going to want to continue to drive their cars. And we wanted to see what the worst case scenario would be. We had one car, a test mule. We cut 17 cells out of 69, and the car still drove and operated perfectly. So 17 appears to be our prediction, and 4 was a prediction by the original designers of the ESS pack.
That's pretty awesome. What an exponential difference that would be. That's very cool.
TikTok, CMAC, would you consider expanding your business? Consider it all the time. The problem is manpower. Finding people to do this type of work is a very daunting challenge. And the prediction we make is that what we do, component level troubleshooting, will always be very unique and esoteric. It's not going to be mainstream. The future, I think, in auto repair is going to move to smart cars, AI in the cars, self-diagnosing, and module swappers at the service center level, doing low-tech work.
There we go. Well, I think that's all the time that we've got for all the, thank you so much for sending all of these questions. Please keep them. We'll probably get to them on our next show. Van Goat says, thank you, great show, and have fun at college, Pete.
Yeah, he says, have fun at the college. I think it'll be great. We're going to have cars outside. We're bringing a Tesla Roadster and a Model S, and there will be about 20 or 30 other cars there, I believe, EVs. Again, anytime we're promoting the transition to renewable energy sources and fossil fuel-free vehicles, it's all good. So that's our goal. Again, we'll see you next Tuesday. This is Thursday. And do we have a video coming out this weekend, guys? Draco?
Yeah, that Draco video is ready to go. As far as when we're going to release it, we are not set at a time yet.
Okay, well, keep an eye on our YouTube channel. If it's released, I think you'll like it. Draco is a new EV manufacturer from San Jose, California. We met them at the Concourse of the Hills. Very impressive products. So anyway, we will see you next week, and appreciate you guys joining us.
Yeah, and thank you. We'll see you at 8:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.